Welcome to Haxby Shed and Odd Jobs video number 2. I took these bits of video over quite a period of time. I take the valves out of this cylinder head. I fit a new belt on my cement mixer. I do 1 or 2 electrical jobs and a couple of small turning jobs. So I hope you enjoy them. And in the background I've been experimenting with a little bit of TIG with my new TIG welder, and I think I said before I didn't know anything about TIG, and I don't know very much now. I will make a video soon on my endeavours to try and learn TIG soon. Okay, well I hope you enjoy the odd jobs. Cheers. Just another odd job. My son has a Golf Mk2 1.8 automatic, and he's changing the gearbox over to be a manual gearbox. And when he got the manual gearbox, it was missing this plug, which is the timing plug from the bell housing. And it's a bit tight as he tries to screw it in to the housing. So he needs something to drive this, and I found in my stock box some 27mm hex, or 1 1/16 inch. So I've just machined the end off it as it was already chamfered, and it just goes on there very nicely actually. It's funny, you buy this stuff and you just can't imagine whenever you would use it, and that's just absolutely a perfect fit for that look. There you go. Just an odd job. Years ago I got these Stilsons. This nut is very worn at the ends, so it's burred over. It's a bit rocky actually on the thread, but it still works. And also the knurling has gone on it, if it was ever there, that is. And the other problem is this leaf spring is broken here. This one's intact, this one's broken. So it doesn't operate properly in its clamping action really. But this is what I'm going to look at right now. So we'll get this big nut off, and then I'll machine it in the lathe and re-knurl it. So I'll mount this ring nut on this 16mm arbor, put this end in the 3-jar. But for this to work, I need to make a bush. So I've got this tube, which fits pretty much in there. Once I've machined it, it will. But this is too large, so I've got this to go in there, and then I'll just machine that out slightly. And that'll give me my bush, so I can mount that ring nut on it. Well, that was a nice bit of metal, but it wasn't free cutting. Ta-da! Now to make the inner bush. 16mm drill. There we go. So I can mount that on that arbor now. I've cleaned up the burrs on the 2 edges here, and now I'm going to knurl it. This is a clamp knurling tool, but it won't open far enough to get the knurling wheels to the centre here, so it's going to be part clamp and part pressure. Now I don't normally like to do pressure knurling, but I've no choice now. So what I'm going to do is centre drill this and put in a live centre just to make all this more rigid. the metal's pretty tough, so I'm hoping it's going to knurl okay. Well, it's turned out quite well actually. I'll get it off there and we can have a look. This nut is a bit worn, but it's an improvement, so worth a little bit of trouble. That'll be okay. Quick odd job repair for my daughter. This is something to do with baby bottles. I don't really know what it is, to be honest. But it has a thermal link fuse inside. So I've looked on YouTube and I think I know how to fix it. Got the thermal fuses. So I'll get the back off and check the fuse and see if it's gone. Well, the back had two different types of screws. Cross point, but also 3-point. Anyway, this is the thermal fuse here. There's actually two of them, I believe. One in the negative and one in the live. I should say neutral and live, shouldn't I? So I'll just check these. You can see the beneficiary of this repair on this baby bottle. Perfect baby bottle maker, apparently. Say something. Anyway, to carry on. So I've replaced this thermal fuse and I'm just doing this one on the neutral side. So there's crimp fittings because if you use a soldering iron, you'll just blow the thermal fuse. And then I'm using clear silicone shrink sleeving, if it is silicone. Shrink sleeving anyway. And then I'll clamp it back together and then I'll get her to test it. That's both thermal fuses replaced and re-sleeved. And then I need to put this clamp around them so that it clamps them to this heating element. And of course, if you run this with no water in, obviously it blows those thermal fuses, which is what's happened, I think. It's when people have them in storage for a while, because this is baby number 2 for her. So this has been in storage for a while. She's put the water in, it's probably had a bit of an airlock. Turn it on, it works for a while, then pop, and then it goes dead. But these are about £100, I think. And these thermal fuses are just, you know, a few pence. So it's worth doing it if you can. Cross fingers it's going to work, of course. Okay, now I just need to put the back cover on. And then I'll get her down here to just turn it on and see if it lights up. And that should tell us if we fixed it or not. Okay, so now we're going to test it. And when we turn it on, some of these lights should come on if we've repaired it. Let's try it. Okay, well that light's come on, which is red, saying no filter. So it's live now, and before it was completely dead. So as long as she makes sure that there's no air bubbles in the water inside, as it goes through the heater, it shouldn't overheat and it should continue as before. And those are the two thermal fuses that I took out. So, how much were these? How much for these?
£2.99, I think.
£2.99 to repair a £100 unit, yeah? So what does he think? Does he think it's alright? Say hello. Right, good. Another job done. My son's project car is a Golf Mk2 1.8 automatic 3-speed, and he's going to be swapping out the automatic gearbox for a manual gearbox, but he's also going to swap the head for this Golf GTI 1.8 head, which has larger inlet valves, and he's asked me if I would get the valves out for him. This is my son's gearbox graveyard. I keep nagging him to get rid of this stuff. So on the left there's the automatic gearbox from the Mk2, and then the one in the centre is a gearbox from a 5 Series BMW, And then on the right, there's the beam axle, which is going to go on his Mark II, but that one incorporates a stiffener torsion bar. I think that's from a GTI, so he's going to clean that up and put that on. But I nag him quite frequently, get rid of all that junk on my drive. So the first thing is just to get the cam off. $13mm. Oh, come on, a bit tight. You can rejoin me when these are undone. These three caps have the same part number, so I'm just going to centre pop them each so I know where they came from. 2 marks on that one and 3 marks on that one. Maybe not strictly necessary, but easier done now than later, having to fiddle about with it. I'll get these caps off now. The cam is a bit more sporty on the GTI, I think. He's already got one actually, but this one came with it, so how do you get that off? Oh, it's the seal stuck, that's why. There you go. Okay, put that to one side. So now we've got the buckets, the cam follower buckets. I don't know if he's going to change these or not, so I'll keep them in the same order anyway. And then we'll have a look at the valves, which are sunk quite down inside. You can buy a valve extractor for these, of course, but if I can figure something out with a little bit of time, then we don't have to buy the valve extractor. I've done a little drawing of the cylinder head, and I've numbered off the cam followers. And I'll just put them in this box where I've numbered at the bottom there. It'll be okay until I kick the box. He's probably going to change them anyway. But, oh, I don't know. This is the valve extractor that I had years ago for my Minis. So there seems to be plenty of height on it and there's plenty of adjustment. So I really just need a tube, I think, with a slot in it, and then I can compress and get the collets out. Bit of metal curtain pole, round about 30mm. Cut it off to some sort of length. Put a couple of big slots in it. Wind a piece of wire round the base so that it doesn't splay at the base. Compress it, use a little screwdriver, poke about, knock the collets off. That's the plan. One slot, bound with soft wire. See how we get on with that. Well, the principle is fine, but I'm going to have to shorten this tube because I can't get this handle past this point because the spring is strong and I need the handle where I've got more leverage. More mechanical advantage, let's say. So I'll just shorten this, maybe take an inch or so off this tube now. It occurs to me that these valves probably haven't been moved since the 1980s. So I'll just make a little block of wood, turn this over, give the valve a tap just to release the collets. That should make it easier. There we go. Oh, I can feel it moving, but it doesn't want to go very far for some reason. I'm still struggling with getting enough pressure on that valve spring compressor. So I've gone to the press. Now those collets should be released. If I can just get the screwdriver in, I should be able to pop those out. Yeah, there's one. There's t'other. Hopefully. Ah! There we go. that valve will drop out now. One's out, not the other, so I'll just have to repeat that. Come on, you. Bear with me. Got there in the end. Just one of the collets didn't want to come out. So I'll do them all on the press, I think, now. It's just easier. Easy this time, now I'm getting the hang of it. Nearly, anyway. One collet's just got jammed again. That's it, I think. Yeah, there we are. That's it. Haven't got a valve spring in my face, so it must be all right. Last one. The trick is to push it down enough and then flick out both collets and make sure they're clear, and then you get it in one. Right, I possibly can't video this and flick the collets out. Hang on. There you are. You can see both collets are off there. Let me just let that up now. There you go. Take that bit of wood off. Take that off. Okay, the two collets are in this tube somewhere. And get that valve out now. Try not to drop the valve on the floor as I do this. The valve stem seals stop the valve dropping out, actually. They'll be replaced, obviously. Almost, right. There we are, 3 bits of wood, a bit of old curtain pole, and the valves are out. Oh, and a press as well. Just another electrical job. This is my cement mixer. My neighbour bought it about 10 or 15 years ago to make a pond in his garden, but he had nowhere to store it, so he said to me, look, you keep it for me, if I need it I'll borrow it back. But my neighbour, I'm afraid he got too old for his garden, it was too large for him, so he's moved away now just recently and has left me with a cement mixer. But the problem with this mixer is it looks very large, that is, it'll take, you know, a lot of mix. But if I put more than about half a bag in it, it stalls. It starts perfectly well, but it just stalls if it's loaded too much. So I'm going to have a look at the motor and see if I can figure out what the problem is. The motor spins freely, the gearbox turns freely. I'm a little suspicious of the capacitor, the starter capacitor, although it always starts all right. So, you know, if it starts all right, it probably is all right, but I'll just do some basic checks, and I've got a replacement capacitor anyway. The capacitor lives under this bubble cover, and it's got 1976 on it. It runs smoothly enough. This is what we're looking at. So we've got the rotor in the centre there. We've got the main field winding, which is always connected. Because this is a single phase motor, there's no rotating field, so it needs a bit of help to get it started in the right direction. So you have a starter winding, field coil, a capacitor to give you a phase shift, and then a centrifugal switch. And actually, when I start this motor, I can hear the switch click, and then when it slows down, I hear the switch click out again. So at least mechanically, the centrifugal switch seems to be working. We'll just try that. So if you listen to it, listen for the click. Now I'm not going to load this up with sand to test it afterwards. I'm just going to take some basic readings and see if anything changes. It's a bit like the doc taking your heart rate and blood pressure before and after some course of tablets. I'll just look at the power factor as well. I've also just put a voltmeter across that capacitor and set this to AC, and then when the mixer is running that should be 0 volts, but as the centrifugal switch just drops out at the end you might just see this kick up a little bit. And there you go. So I think that tells me the centrifugal switch is working. I got it fixed in my mind that it was the motor that was stalling, but actually when I get this cover off I can see the belt's all perished, look, and it's quite loose and it spins on this pulley. So in all probability it was this, just my memory playing up because I haven't used it for a while now, but if I check it over electrically there's no harm done. It's quite reassuring. So I'll get this motor moved, get this belt off and get another one ordered. Well, that's pretty conclusive. Look at the state of that belt, look. But I can actually see the size on it. Bit of finger spit. A24. Motor bearings are fine. Look how long that's taking to run down. Since it is probably just the belt, I'll squirt a bit of silicone over these just to insulate them, bring it up to modern practice, and just put it back together, and when I get the belt I'll try it out. It's been worth having a look anyway, I think. There we go. There's no sign of water ever getting in here, but as I got it off I'll just put a bit of silicone on the gasket. Well, that's all back together, and I'll get that belt ordered, but for the time being it's case closed. My new cement mixer drive belt has arrived. It's an A25. The old one was an A24, but when I was trying to take the old belt off I had to move the motor right to the bottom of its adjustment slot, and I just felt that it was a bit tight, so I added an inch on. So it's an A belt, which means that it's 13 millimeters across here, and in this case 25 inches internal diameter there. The belt for the shaper is a B profile, or about 16 millimeters, or near enough 5/8 if you prefer it. This is the old belt, by the way. There you are. And the belt on my little model maker's drill is a Z profile. It shows 9, but it's nominally 10 millimeters. Get that adjusted up now. That looks fine. It's just over halfway along its adjustment slot now. It just makes it a lot easier to get the belt off if I can drop the motor down quite a bit. So I'll get the cover on, then it'll be finished, and I'll be able to do the pointing up on the walls that I need to do. It's all very well having nice brick garden walls, but then now and then you've got to point them up. So I hope that was useful to you. Thank you for watching Haxby Shed.